Hey there, fellow citizens of the internet. Welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast. Today, I have with me Dr. Brett. Dr. Brett, welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast.
Thank you, Moses. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Okay, so we're just gonna shoot the shit, so to speak, and let the conversation take us where it may. Do you want to
Okay,
give
cool.
the audience a quick intro of who you are and what you do? And yeah.
Oh, sure. So I have a doctorate in psychology. I have about 50,000 plus hours of experience as a psychologist, as a sports psychologist, as a business coach, and as a life coach. I do a hybrid of all four. I'm an all-in personality type. So I have, like, what I tell people playfully, which is also accurate, is that, I've got really high skill sets and I'm all in. So if I get behind you, your family, your team, whatever it is, you guys are going to win.
Okay, so winning is the end goal. Can you unpack that? What does winning mean?
Winning isn't what it appears in my world. And winning can be happiness, it can be creativity, it can be financial success, it can be, actually winning on the field. So it really has to do with what someone else's goals are and what the right balance is for them. For some people, it's all about winning. For other people, they need to find a sense of happiness and a sense of well-being as well.
Okay, well, let's unpack that the
Sure.
happiness part of it, right? Because it's one of those umbrella terms that just get thrown around left and right. Like if you're pursuing happiness, what exactly are you pursuing? My guess is that the average person is not pursuing the ability to sit in a room and laugh 24/7 and call that happiness, right?
But that might
Can
not
you
be happiness. If it's 24/7, it's going to probably be misery. Can't laugh that much. Otherwise, there will be no opposite, right?
exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah, so look, so I mean, look, so most of us need a mission in life, right? We need a sense of
Okay,
purpose, right? And without that sense of purpose, happiness is going to be elusive. That said, if you're not doing a lot right, happiness will be elusive as well, in the sense that if you're not exercising, meditating, and taking care of your mind, body, and spirit, then you're going to feel pretty lousy. And if you feel pretty lousy, it's hard to have a sense of well-being. And so when we talk about happiness in a general way, we're really just referring to a sense of well-being. Does that come and go on this planet? Absolutely. Nobody's happy 24/7. If you're laughing all the time, you're in trouble, because then there's no balance, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's the same thing if you're, hyper competitive all the time, right? Then you're going to have a problem as well, right? There are famous people like Phil Mickelson, right? That they gamble a lot, right? They have to be competitive 24/7. That's tricky. That's difficult, right? So
Mm,
it just depends who you are, what you're about, and how you're wired, and what you want to create and experience, and that's going to change as you evolve.
okay, okay. So have a mission. So have a goal. Have something to strive to. So before we even like get further into this, what got you into this path of sports psychology?
Well, I did a relatively traditional route, in the sense that I grew up in Connecticut. I went to Emory University in Atlanta. I was an economics psychology double major. I went into business for a couple years and felt a little bit empty. I'm just
Mm,
wired. It's just the way I'm wired to make a difference. It's just who I am. Like I'm a heart. I could describe myself as a heart-based giver. And so the business world at that time felt empty. And so I applied to doctoral programs all around the country. I got into a program in San Diego, and I went out there and got a traditional doctorate in clinical psychology in the 90s. That was almost 30 years ago. Grad school is a lot of fun, but it's a tunnel. You have to get out of that tunnel, otherwise you're going to get buried in debt. And so eventually I was able to, get my PsyD, Doctor of Psychology degree. To get licensed as a psychologist is another year to 2 years, because you need all these postdoc supervised hours. I did a
mm,
residency in Connecticut, and then I built a business in psychology. And in that business in psychology, I did a lot of different things. I taught at a community college, 2 courses a semester. I worked at a Head Start program for disadvantaged poor people in relatively inner city environments. And then I built a private practice in psychology. And so for a long time in my 30s, I did traditional psychology, adolescents, families, the burbs, anxiety, depression, you name it. But the education and training was so intense that I got exposed to every kind of mental illness you can think of. Graduate school in psychology doesn't teach you some of the most important things on this planet, which is like how to build a business and how to be happy, right? Those are things that I learned on my own, more or less. Some of them the hard way. At age 40, I unhooked my life and traveled, put my business on the phone 17 years ago. And then my life became a lot less traditional. I did that because all that work of giving and helping others didn't lead to happiness. It didn't lead to unhappiness either. I was successful. I was making a difference. I was respected in my community, but it just didn't really fit in. I wasn't married or divorced with two kids, and that was important in the location that I was living. I had a girlfriend at the time, and so, like I said, I put my business on the phone. I traveled. Everybody stayed with me because I'm so intense. And then, unfortunately, that spiritual journey went wrong, and I lost my ability to sleep doing a esoteric kind of energy work. And I lost my ability to sleep for 3 months twice and nearly died. I went through a severe suicidal depression and lost my health, my business, my self-esteem, the woman, and most of my assets, and had to come back to Connecticut to start over. Sorry, I got a big doodle here coming in and out. Had to come back to Connecticut to start over, and then from there, I recreated my life and business 17 years ago, and really decided to focus mostly on athletes and entrepreneurs. I'm an identical twin, and we were super athletic. We just didn't have any size, so there was nowhere to go with it, but we were both very clutch and very good in any hand-eye sport. And so I've, been competitive in golf. We grew up playing baseball, and I just like athletes a lot, in large part because they have a high commitment to excellence and they're tougher in general, generalizing, right? And the entrepreneurs are super interesting for me because they're a little bit out of the box and they have a lot more courage. And that's something that I've definitely lived with, a lot of courage. I haven't done a traditional path here. Eventually, I was able to unhook a second time because of another set of circumstances that were super difficult. And I ran my business from Asia 6 years ago, from Beijing and Bangkok. And I was able to meet my wife 6 years ago on a blind date in Bangkok, and we've been together ever since. So it's pretty cool stuff.
My
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah.
Wow,
So that's
that's what
just a little summary. I mean, the details
yeah.
of it are immense. And I did write a story based on the destruction of my life that I didn't publish because I had so much trauma when I wrote it.
Yeah, yeah. That's quite a summary. Thanks for giving that summary.
Yeah, sure, Moses.
Um, you
See where you take that one.
no, I'm more captivated in the traveling part of it. So what? First of all, like where'd you go? What countries did you go? Which ones were
We
the?
started like I was 40, and my girlfriend at the time was 30. And so I had an Audi convertible, and we left Connecticut and headed to Pensacola, Florida, where she had a professional opera gig. She was a professional singer, professional opera star. And then Tuck and I had a labradoodle at the time. I still wear a bracelet to
Mm,
signify the 13 years we spent together. It says something like, if love alone was enough, you would have lived forever. Because my buddy
mm,
Tuck and I traveled the country together. But so we started in Pensacola, and then Tuck and I went to New Mexico. And I had a spiritual teacher type at the time there in New Mexico, in Santa Fe-ish. She lived like at this Indian reservation. I lived in downtown Santa Fe. And then Tuck and I met a woman in Boulder, and we would commute back and forth 500 miles to Boulder, and she would come stay with us in Santa Fe. And then unfortunately, I got exposed or started working with the wrong spiritual master type. And then that eventually led to the annihilation of my health and business and life. And it was catastrophic. It took 3, 4 years to recover from, physically and emotionally, at least that long. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and, wrote a book and ran my business bi-coastal LA to Connecticut. And then eventually did it again and ran it from Asia. But in the places that I lived, when I lived in Santa Fe, we also lived in Boulder, that woman that we met in Boulder, she became a girlfriend at the time, and we lived in Sonoma together. I did graduate school in San Diego, so I've lived everywhere: L.A., San Diego, Sonoma, Boulder,
Mm.
Denver. Like I said, Santa Fe, New York City when I was young in business there, Connecticut, Florida, and then Beijing, Bangkok, and some other places as well. So when you travel a lot and you experience other cultures, it's really fascinating. It's one of the things I coach most of the people that I'm guiding, just to have experiences outside their little boxes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I've had girlfriends from, so many different cultures. Before I got married, I had a lot of different relationships, and many of them were, from the Caribbean or from Mexico or from just about anywhere, right? Japan. We actually, when my wife and I just went to Asia a month ago, we stopped in Tokyo. We did a 10-hour layover, and I saw one of my friends from grad school. She's a psychologist in Tokyo, and I haven't seen her in 27 years. And it was just like yesterday. It was so fun because I've stayed connected, and that's just my style. I'm like a heart-based connector type, and I stay connected
Yeah.
on my end of the equation.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
So
That, I
you can see
I
why there's nothing to plan here.
yeah, yeah. No, no, but I love this. I love this because it's like uh I was in New Mexico for Santa Fe specifically for a minute. I was not living there. I was just we were like shooting a movie there for 3 months, so I got to live there. But um I'm interested in the spirituality side of this story, this journey that they just described, with your background in clinical
In
psychology, you said.
psychology, yeah.
So something in my mind says those two things are not commensurate. What's going on?
There are psychology and spirituality is like, like psychology is the understanding of human behavior, right? And, psychotherapy is some process of guiding people through change, right? And
yeah,
spirituality, from my perspective, spirituality is just the focus on present moment time at a really high level, right? I
mm,
meditate so much that when your consciousness is super in the moment, there's, just a deeper level of joy and acceptance everywhere. And so when you live that way, and my mind tends to be more open in general than most of the people I meet, right? And I do
yeah,
think that that has to do with meditative states. In theory, you could get there through psychology on some level, but I think incorporating the two is a no-brainer. Anytime you have a chance to deepen your spirituality, your commitment to the present, right? I think that
yeah.
you're going to win. You're going to win on this planet.
Okay, so then is it? Yeah, my mind is having a hard time like
No, it's cool.
combining the two, because like one is like a particular school of thought that has is quite methodical. Things have to be studied. Things need to be proved, peer reviewed, X, Y, and Z. And then you have the let's say traditional
I mean, but you're probably thinking
that
about
doesn't.
research psychology a little bit, Moses, right? In
Yeah.
research psychology, maybe things have to be proven. In the art of psychotherapy or in the art of coaching, I do more of a coaching model, like it's a more of a
Okay.
coaching style. I'm
Yeah.
not doing a lot of digging into people's past. I'm operating from present moment time and how can we, live in, and live. What I'm doing is living and teaching courage and creativity and an open mind. I'm living with an open heart, but that's pretty rare. I'm not expecting other people to go that far because that takes a lot of courage.
Hmm.
But I don't think they're completely separate in the sense that I think, the essence of psychology is to help people heal, right? And to
Hmm.
help people love more and help people accept more and help people thrive, right? And thriving can be financial success. It can be, it can be all kinds of success, but certainly interpersonal success, right? And so when you
Yeah.
combine that with spirituality, where you're mastering more or less the present moment, again, that's my definition of spirituality. Other people will have a different definition, but for me, it's all about the present moment. And the more time you spend in the here and now, the better your relationships are going to be everywhere on this planet,
Hmm.
including
Hmm.
your relationship with yourself, Moses.
Yeah. So, and that's a very thing. That's the thing that is worth repeating, including the relationship with yourself, right? Speaking of coaching and relationships, what do you see being like one of the biggest obstacles that people have when they're in their own journey of self love, or even
I
like
mean,
understanding what
I
that
think the
means?
vast majority of people have a lot of fear, and sort of some of it's baked in. I mean, if you look at
Mm,
human history, there's just been a lot of death and disease and slaughter, right? So,
yeah.
and a lot of tribal bullshit and so on. So there's just a lot of, I mean, think about the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Persian Empire, right? The Assyrian Empire, and freaking doesn't end the amount of, think about the, what do you call it? Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire. I mean, how many people got slaughtered? And then, Hitler and Mao and Stalin, they slaughtered hundreds of millions of people throughout human history. So there's just a inherent fear baked into who we are. And I think that that's a major obstacle to pretty much everything, right? The fear is super intense, and helping people overcome that fear is invaluable. I'm doing it largely not by digging into your past, because those patterns in your past have value to understand. But it's really about training your mind to be present. As a sports psychologist, it's almost, a lot of what we're doing is mental game training, but it's the same thing for an entrepreneur or an IT professional, right? The more you master the present moment, the better you are at your craft, whatever that craft is. I do coach a couple, what I playfully call nerds, data scientist types or, AI genius types. And their progress has been immense because they've learned intuitive ability through the present moment, not just, math and
Mm.
data and science, right? And that intuitive ability is real. And you can access that by being crazy freaking present, and meditative states obviously help that.
Hmm. Meditation.
Yeah.
That's is that what, I know what it is, but
Well, it's time to live it, Moses. Why do you think you're talking to me? What do you really,
the
what is this
well,
about? You really
well,
think
and
this
that's
is
what
about my life? It's probably about yours.
that's what we're about to dive into here a little bit, because it's like when I hear of meditation, the idea is, well, there's somebody sitting at the top of the mountain with their legs crossed and doing the
I mean,
namaste
you just
sign,
saw
and
some picture, that's
so
all.
exactly. So what? Well, that's a
I
good
do
place
cross
to
my
start.
legs all the time because I'm good at it. I've been doing it for decades or whatever. But there's lots of different ways to meditate. I just teach
Mm,
a basic one where you close your eyes and you pick up the breath, the in breath, the out breath, one or the other or both. And then when thoughts come, that's okay. We're not trying to control thought. We're just bringing our focus back to what we want, which is the breath. That's a basic way to meditate, but I'm not doing that. I'm mostly using chakra points, which are energy centers like the third eye or crown chakra or heart chakra or whatever. Some people are using a mantra just like Om, and they're repeating it 1,000 times. But basically, the idea is that we bring our focus to what we want, not what we don't want. A candle, a mantra, a chakra center, the breath. As we do that, thought starts to subside. And when thought starts to subside, now we're into something, another realm of possibility, and that realm is pretty special. On a neurological level, what you're doing when you're meditating is you're decreasing neurological activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain that's processing anger and anxiety and fear, and you're increasing neurological activity in the left prefrontal cortex, which is where happiness exists on a neurological level. So you could come at it as a scientist, or you could come at it as a, as a spirit, so to speak, and just, learn the process, but it will make you better at your craft, Moses, whatever that craft is. Friend,
oh,
lover, IT specialist, you'll be better
okay,
because
okay.
you'll have less, your thoughts will be, you'll have less thought in general, and you'll be less distracted in general the more you meditate and the better you get
Mm,
at meditation. And as an
okay.
athlete, that's invaluable, right? I'm coaching a lot of
Yeah.
athletes, like I said.
Mm. It'll take me a minute to process this whole third eye and chakra and stuff.
Well, you don't want to get too
Uh,
distracted by that, right? Because if you're not ready for the third eye, that's fine. Just do the simple breath.
yeah, yeah. Huh.
Don't let your
Okay.
mind get distracted by something I said. The essence of the message is it's time for you to meditate more.
Yeah. Well, it's the what you touched on earlier, right? Which is
And someone else will
the
tell you this too, right? Within the
okay.
next month, someone else will be telling you, Moses, you got to meditate.
Oh, I've been my partner in crime. She's all into all that.
Okay,
And
good.
so
Well, she's been trying
I
to tell
hear
you for a while, your
I
partner in
hear
crime.
yeah
What's her
I hear
name? Your partner in crime?
Sylvia.
Sylvia. Yeah. All right,
Yeah, so
cool.
I hear about it all the time. But it's not. You mentioned the importance of traveling earlier, right? That it gets you out of this bubble that you are used to,
These
and
boxes
so
that people get themselves stuck in are pretty intense.
exactly. And so I'm not opposed to stepping out of the box, and I travel to I love to travel to different cultures. In fact, what was it the beginning of this year? I think the first 2 months I was in. We were in Morocco, all over the place in Morocco, and just seeing how life is done, from a religious perspective, from just the day to day. Yeah, on that side of the world. But
Nice. Awesome.
um,
Fantastic.
the
What'd you learn
the
from your 2 months in Morocco, Moses? What was your top three
oh,
takeaways?
yeah, well, one being in a place where the primary religion was different of the primary religion that I was brought up in, right? And just seeing that um, life just continues the same way. Like you have merchants that happen to be Muslim. You have the ordinary folk that have a regular 9 to 5, whether they're Muslim or not. That's just it doesn't seem to be that different. And hearing that daily prayer, on a day-to-day basis, and that was like, well, this is not good or bad. It just is. This is how life
Yeah, it's
is
different.
here, right? It's
You know,
just different.
aspects of
It's
it are
different,
different, but aspects of it are
right?
very similar,
Right. Just
right?
just just
Yeah.
understanding that, yeah, people do life differently somewhere else,
Humanity,
and that
though, is similar at a core level. Humanity can and often does transcend religion. I think that's what you're trying to say.
yeah, right. We're humans first before we
Yeah.
are religious entities,
I'm not sure
humans.
everybody knows that, but you do. So, good stuff.
I'm still trying to unpack all that. But how does all this converge into sports?
Look, I mean, I've got many different sides to me, right? I've got like a bohemian side that's an artist that's socially unconventional, call it 10%. I have a
Hmm.
playfully, I call it a Greek side. It's a playful way of communicating. I like to do nothing and sip lattes and hang out with people, right? No agenda,
Yeah.
nowhere to go, nothing to accomplish. I've got a competitive side, an athlete side, a warrior side, an intellectual side. I have a lot of different sides to me, but with the athletes, I've lived, fairly courageously on this planet. I've had a lot of experiences, and I teach everybody how to get tougher, mentally tougher, emotionally tougher, physically tougher. They don't need to learn from me. These are top athletes. A lot of them are genetic specimens. They have that part covered. What I'm working with is the 90% of the iceberg that they can't see, and most people can't see, the mental, emotional, and spiritual realms, because the vast majority of people you're going to meet, wherever you are in the world, more or less, are going to be caught up in the physical, right? The table is the table, even though it's 99.99% empty space. They're not seeing and feeling the energy. So what I'm teaching people to do is really focus, really train their mind and focus on what they want. And then we tweak the process along the way, right? Some of these kids want to
Mm.
be, a lot of these kids are D1s. They want to be major league athletes. That process is a bitch, right? Very few people actually make it. The process of making it is fraught with ups and downs, and having a psychologist, sports psychologist, mentor, guide along the way is absolutely invaluable. The parents that invest in me, are making a really good decision in large part because I'm ferocious on my end of the equation, and when I get behind people, I'm super loyal and I'm super generous with my time.
Hmm. Okay. And so my guess is that in your process of coaching, at some point the idea of instilling in the individual a positive, not positive, but the ability to build good habits, right, has to enter the equation at some point.
That's
So
a
how do
massive
you?
part of our process. That's a massive part
Yeah.
of our process. Yeah.
So, well, how do you go about telling someone or teaching them
Well,
how
it's not
to
about, yeah, it's not about
replace?
so much telling. I'm inviting people to make changes that are not easy. Behavior change is ferociously difficult for most people. So we
Yeah.
go over things 1,700 times. One of them is we get everybody to stop vaping because it's fucking horseshit and ruins your fucking brain. So the
Mm,
vaping has to go. We're going to, really work on reducing other habits like weed or porn or TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is. And then we're going to increase really good habits. Basically, you want to do any habit change, you got to substitute. And so we're going to substitute really good habits like exercise, like meditation, like communication, like relationships, right? Even walking the dogs and having a relationship with your pet is going to be much better than freaking TikTok most of the time for your brain, right? In terms of, and
yeah.
then for your overall health. So there's just a lot of, redundancy involved in helping people do habit change. It's not easy, but I care, right? You know what I mean? So when I get involved with somebody, we're going to go back over, the habits thousands of times until they get really good. Some people quit. They're not ready for who I am or what I'm about or mentoring, guiding process. Other people stay with me. The people, like I say, that stay with me, they tend to win because I'm going to stay with them at a level that's pretty awesome, right?
Okay. So repetition, and you're not trying to create new habits. You're trying to replace the bad ones with the ones that we want. Is that a good
Well,
summary?
some of them are new habits. Some of the adults, I call it 11, 11, 11, meaning 11 minutes of Wim Hof, which is breath work,
Mm,
11
mm.
minutes of meditation, and 11 minutes of exercise. The kids are exercising anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a day. If they're on the pro circuit for tennis, that's going to be 7 to 8 hours physically, right? A day, right? If they're baseball players, it might be 4 or 5 hours, whatever it is, but or basketball or football, whatever. But so physically, they've got that largely covered, right? What we're working on is habits that they're not going to have, like meditation. Very few people come into my business, have a conversation with Dr. Brett and say, I've been meditating for years and I'm doing 40 minutes a day now. That's extremely rare, right? The vast
Mm.
majority of people, I'm coaching them how to build a meditation practice into their daily routines. It starts with 5 or 10 minutes in the morning or evening, and eventually it grows from there. But I'm going to bring it up every conversation we have because I'm going to make meditation an important part of our coaching process because it has so much value. Breath work has so much value. Mindfulness practice has so much value. Mindfulness, when you're bringing your focus back into the moment, pretty much every time you recognize that your mind is in the future or the past, unless you want it there. My playful metaphor is very few people are fantasizing about having sex with a deep supermodel. They're worried about getting fired or the coach benching them, right? So they
Mm,
don't have a
mm.
positive, right? They're when their mind goes to the future, most of the time it's not some positive fantasy. It's something negative. And so we're bringing our focus back all the time into the moment. And that mindfulness practice is a habit that we're going to go over 1,800 times as well until it becomes more solidified. So meditation, mindfulness, visualization is another habit in meditative states where you start to see and feel what it is you want to create and experience in the future. That's insanely positive. So meditation, mindfulness, visualization, breath work. The breath work, it has so much value because, not only is it oxygenating your tissues and blood, whatever, but you're orienting back into the present moment and changing your state. And it can relax and calm you under pressure, right? The communication stuff that we go over, I'm ferocious around communication. So I'm going to teach everybody how to be on point as a communicator. That's extremely rare because the vast majority of people, the teachers, the parents, the coaches, are pretty average at best. In other words, the vast majority of people, at least in America anyway, I'll generalize about America, are not great communicators. And as a result of that, we could literally spend 90% of our coaching process on communication. Now, we're not going to, but we could. That's how vast it is of a territory that is not handled well in our family systems and our school systems and in our friendships. So when I teach everybody how to communicate well and straight up and with a fair amount of decency and kindness, that said, that process is not easy for most people. but the growth in it, Moses, is insane.
Okay. Can you touch more? I know you did, but can you touch more on
Sure. I mean,
on the relationship between meditation and the physiological benefits from meditation?
again, on a neurological level, you're decreasing neurological activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain that's processing the negativity and the fear and anxiety and all that, and the anger and so on. And you're increasing neurological activity in the left prefrontal cortex, right? So you're creating a substrate for happiness, present moment time, more empathy, more understanding, more acceptance on a neurological level. So
Yeah.
the more you meditate, you sit, Moses, in meditative states for 20, 30, 40 minutes a day. And as good as your relationship is with Sylvia right now, it'll be a lot better. It just will
Okay.
be, right? Because the amount of appreciation and joy you'll get, it will be enhanced. You probably already have some of that. You seem like a super good guy, but it'll be next level up or many levels up from there. And that's part of the reason why she's been pushing you to meditate or do some of the, stuff in that realm, because she knows that you're not fully tapped into your potential that way, not just with relationship, but also with your IT work and so on. Because, guys like Einstein would use meditative states or dream states to, figure out their equations, right? He was a deeply spiritual dude that, was able to harness his potential in, altered states of consciousness, call them meditative states or dream states.
Okay. Okay. And just to clarify here, what
As an
you?
athlete, though, you're talking about dropping in the zone, right? So,
Okay.
you
Okay.
know what I mean?
Okay.
So, like, I drop in without physical practice. I can still drop in without practicing. The athletes are practicing 4 to 6 hours a day. I don't practice any golf. And occasionally I still drop in from all those meditative states. So I can
Okay.
have 4 or 5 holes where I'm playing lights out without having practiced in weeks or months, because I can drop into like a state of present moment time, and it's called the zone, right? Now, the athletes I'm going to coach are going to be able to access that zone more frequently than they would without all the mental game training. Does that make sense, Moses?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And just to elaborate more on being in the zone, that is referring to, I mean, we all know what that means, but it's like you are in the zone of optimal development, right? That means like you're right on the edge between the things that you know and the things that you don't know, and you're being pushed, but not so much that you give up, but also it's not like not challenging either, right? Is that a good summary of what the zone means?
It's more like, the way I would see it is more like peak performance. You get into peak performance states without
Okay.
trying. You're not trying, it just occurs.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Because
Well,
I
like,
no.
even you could even do that with Sylvia, right? It's like every once in a while you have an experience with her that's just so profound. Like, and you've just sort of, the two of you guys have just dropped in together into a place of just, like mutual joy. You could do that as an athlete where you just drop in and you're in the zone for freaking 4 hours, and even though it's a slow baseball game, you went 4 for 4, and hit the cycle or something, right?
Okay.
Or
Okay.
you're playing
Okay. Okay.
basketball and you're shooting, instead of 40%, you're now shooting at 80%. You just, Michael Jordan's done this, Tiger Woods, they hit these flow states, right? But you could do it as a lover.
Okay. I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
It's
Okay.
like a
Okay.
flow state, right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
like,
Flow state.
what I
Okay.
mean? Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So
Okay.
what
Okay.
you're doing is you're suspending, like you have a IT mind and background, you're suspending all that extra thought. It's not, you know, all that extra thought can interfere with your optimal performance, right?
Yep.
If you go into no thought states, you actually can perform at a higher level.
Is it possible to be in a no thought state, or just the thoughts that are
100%. You just haven't
relatives?
meditated. That's a question a non-meditator would ask. Anybody that meditates a lot spends a fair amount of time in no thought states. Like when I go into deep meditative states, I'm in like vortexes. There's the space between my thoughts is pretty significant. Like I can do it right now while we're talking. I can just, have no background thought. It's a more fun way to communicate with you. It's why I don't like being prepared for interviews with strangers. I want to just drop in right in the present moment. I had no idea where this conversation was going to go. I don't
Okay.
want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want to
I
know
think
where it's going to go because then I'm not totally free. I'm
right.
not
Right.
totally in the
Okay.
moment.
Okay.
I'm
I see what
thinking
you're
and
saying.
planning something as opposed to just feeling you and being so in the moment that this thing gets fucking fun.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. I see what you mean by no thought. Okay, because in my mind I was thinking like no thought, meaning like your
There's
mind
no
is just
background thought.
completely
Yeah.
blank. That
It can
that's
be, it's devoid of thought, which is magical. And people that don't experience that don't understand it. But when you meditate a lot, you have a lot more space between thoughts. Instead of 80,000 thoughts a day or whatever the average person has, whatever they have, 50,000, 80,000, maybe you have 10,000
yeah,
thoughts in a day. That's pretty significant.
yeah,
It means
yeah,
you tend to
yeah.
be a little bit more, you tend to be a little to a lot more present and a little to a lot more happy.
Okay, there's not a lot of downsides there.
No,
Okay, huh?
it's pretty much all upside except for when people start to do this kind of journey, it makes them uncomfortable. The downside is it scares them, right? Because you don't
Oh
need
yeah,
as
of
much
course, of
ego.
course.
Well,
Yeah,
you're not going to need as much ego in the present moment, right? Right?
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
need your as much identity.
And we can't. Well, coming from someone who doesn't meditate, we can't live 100% in the moment all the time because then one of the
No, then
things,
we'd be Jesus or the Buddha, and you and I are not going to be Jesus or the Buddha in
right,
this
and
lifetime. But
and
they
I,
can. That's pretty much what they're doing.
right, right,
Right?
uh,
Like if you
and
believe in the historical Jesus and you believe in the Buddha, that's more or less what they're doing. They have almost no background thought, right? So they're accessing present moment time in a way that we can't.
yeah, yeah, I'd love to see the brain waves of someone in deep meditation. That would be interesting to
Well,
see compared
you
compared
could
to,
you could Google that one.
yeah, yeah, that would be super cool. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Right. But it's only going to point you in a direction that Sylvia's already been trying to point you. So
Eh, maybe not. I might be like one of those
how
extra.
much money you got? Well, I'll bet you have.
Yeah, I'm pretty. Huh?
You're stubborn. No, I get it. You're a little bit
Very
stubborn. I
well,
totally
not
get
only
it. I
stubborn,
know.
not
I
only
got you. I
stubborn, but
got
like
you.
also in addition to being stubborn, I'm like dogmatic, selectively,
Yeah, I know
right?
you're a little skeptical, a
So
little
like
stubborn, a
selectively.
little dogmatic. I totally get it,
Yeah.
but why do you think this is happening here? It's an invitation to be less so.
Well, fair, fair, and the invitation is not being well received. Okay.
No,
Huh.
it'll
So
sink in. It might take a few days. You're just a little
give
hard headed, but that's okay. You know what I mean? Like it's
give it
fine. You're a
time.
good guy.
Give it some time. So
Some of the
then
best people on the planet started out hard headed.
I think Steve Jobs also he was on that
I mean,
path,
I
right?
don't think he's a great metaphor for like, he's great for creating iPhones or an app, the foundation of
Well,
Apple, but I'm not sure he was a great human being, right?
no,
So,
no, no. I mean, like on
uh,
the meditative side, he took a whole like several
yeah, so
months
he
in
probably used those meditative states to create his part of his genius, right? Just like Einstein. I read half of one of Jobs, I think one of the books on him, or
yeah.
right, but I never finished it, so
Yeah,
I can't remember
read
anymore.
if you get a chance, read the whole thing. He took some time down on the east side of the world and tried
Oh
to
no, that I
develop.
know, and that my
Okay, okay.
twin, I'm an identical twin. He blames Steve Jobs' early death on the spiritual path, right? Denying
Okay,
certain
okay.
medicines and so on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fair,
So,
fair,
right.
fair. So what does the next 5 years look like for you?
We're pretty focused. We have a pretty awesome team. My assistant Ashley is amazing, and we got a bunch of interns and some other kids working for us. And the business I'm running right now, the athletes and entrepreneurs, I truly love. My wife is my partner. We have the two big dogs. So the present is super cool. We've got a pretty amazing life going in terms of, we just traveled back from Asia. We're now, Florida to Connecticut. I have a huge base in Connecticut. I have a foundation of friends and location here in South Florida. And then I have a small hub in Bangkok. So it's super interesting. And then, we're just going to keep building the fundamentals of the mental game, some of the programs I'm working on, and some of the other aspects of our brand. But, the cool thing is I love the process. I mean, I love the experience. I like who I am as a person and what I'm up to and how I'm going about it. I love the people. I'm such a connector type, right? That, I have so many awesome relationships. And for me, part of happiness, a big chunk of it is the connection, is the love and appreciation I have for the friends and family and client base. My client base is super special because either people stay with me and appreciate our process and me, or they just move on their way. So the people that have stayed with me, it's just really fun to guide them, right? So actually, I've created a super fun business, and my assistant Ashley is doing the sort of a big part of the brand side of Dr. Brett here, and we're so heart based together. It's amazing. We have physically different backgrounds, but we have so much overlap. It's crazy. She grew up black in Newark, and so her background is very different than mine. But the amount of overlap in terms of who we are is incredible. She's just so heart based and so bright and talented and just really fun to have as like a junior partner here.
Okay. And this has nothing to do with your background. Well, it does. But what is your childhood favorite song? Like as the very first favorite song that you can remember as a kid?
I just remember some of those like Eagles songs, like "Take It Easy," right? Like, or
Yeah,
"Lying
yeah,
Eyes," or like "Hotel California." I don't know why that just my association just went right to the Eagles. I know, what I mean. I haven't even
yeah,
thought of that. That's a question I haven't thought of never. I've never thought of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the
But
first time. So that's where I just followed my associations, and they went to a bunch of Eagles songs.
okay, okay, but okay, not a particular song. And do you have a particular song right now?
What do I listen to all the time? There's a few songs that I listen to over and over and over. I listen to the background music. It's just lyrics. I mean, not
Mm,
lyrics. I mean, it's just the instrumentals
yeah.
from Once Upon a Time in the West, Sergio Leone movie, spaghetti western. Just that, I'm not a singer, so I can't do it. But so I'm going to
Okay. Okay.
listen. And then there's Sanatam Kaur, this Sikh music that Raymond Shabbat used to write to. So there's certain background music, and then I'll listen to Frank Sinatra's "My Way" because I like doing life my way or whatever, and Kenny Rogers, "A Gambler" or whatever. So there's certain songs I'll listen to like over and over and over again just because they resonate with me. Or what's his name from Supertramp? A Little Bit of Love. Was it Kenny
Mm,
Hodgins or whatever?
no idea.
Or anyway, just give a little bit, like give a little bit of love. Have you ever heard that song by Supertramp? So give a little bit of love. So yeah, so
No.
I'm going to date myself a little bit, but you know what I mean. But these are
Okay.
you probably haven't heard of these things, but I don't know. My taste is sort of esoteric, I guess, or eclectic, or whatever they would you describe it. What about you?
Okay. The earliest favorite song, I can't even think of it. Yeah, it would be in a completely different language, anyways. But I don't know. Yeah,
In Portuguese, which language?
it would be in Mashangana, which is a
Mashangana.
local dialect spoken in southern Mozambique, Maputo.
Ah, so that's where you're from,
Yeah,
Mozambique. Ah, very cool.
that's where I grew up. I'm from Rwanda. I was born in Rwanda.
Rwanda.
Yeah, but yeah,
Right.
I couldn't
By
mention
the way,
it
I'm
though.
2% East African.
Okay, okay, okay. I can sense the 2%.
Totally.
uh,
Rwanda,
uh,
huh? So you grew up in Mozambique and Rwanda,
yep,
both places?
yep, and the
Oh,
states
very
when
cool.
yeah, mid teens I came to the U.S. But right now I listen to a lot of country music. That's I bring that on myself, and I
Nice.
get a lot of crap
So
for that.
sometimes I listen to Kenny Chesney or whatever occasionally,
Okay, okay,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So
Any last thoughts that you wanna leave the audience with as far as their either not necessarily like spiritual walk, but as far as their mental fortitudes and being able to.
No, obviously you could catch the core theme, Moses, in terms of the value in training your mind, not just training your body, right? And the mental game training is just such an important part of life, right? And the spirituality comes in part by training the mind, because then you're more in the present moment. And when you're more in the present moment, you just have more access to the heart space, right? Because if you're, thinking too much, that's going to interfere with everything, not just performance, but your ability to love. And so, coming back into training your mind and bringing your focus back into the moment. And then, of course, whatever you do, you give it 100%. And that's an amazing way to live.
That is an amazing way to live. Dr. Brett, thank you so much for coming to the Moses Kabandana Podcast.
Moses, absolutely a pleasure.
Just, yeah.